Welcome to an incredible story that will inspire you and improve your English skills at the same time. Today, we are diving into the life of Albert Einstein, a man who changed the world with his ideas, courage, and curiosity. As you listen, focus on the new phrases and vocabulary you hear. This is not just about learning English, it is about learning how persistence and curiosity can lead to greatness. So grab a notebook, pay close attention, and begin this journey to improve your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, and find deep motivation in the life of a true genius. Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879, in a small town in Germany. His parents, Hermann Einstein and Pauline Cook, were ordinary people. Hermann was a businessman who worked with electrical equipment, while Pauline was a homemaker who loved music and learning. When Albert was born, there was nothing extraordinary about him, except for one small detail: his head was unusually large. His family even joked about it, wondering if he would grow up to be a normal child. Little did they know that this quiet baby would one day change the world forever. Albert was a very quiet child. He did not speak his first words until he was almost 3 years old, and this worried his parents deeply. Some people even thought there was something wrong with him. His family called him the quiet one because he rarely spoke, even when other children around him were talking and laughing. But Albert was not quiet because he was slow. He was quiet because he was always thinking. He would sit for hours, silently observing the world around him, as if he were trying to understand how everything worked. When Albert was 5 years old, his father gave him a small gift that would change his life forever. It was a simple compass. At first, Albert did not understand how it worked. How could the needle always point north, no matter how he turned it? He became obsessed with this tiny object. He stared at it for hours, trying to understand the invisible force that guided the needle. This was the first time Albert realized that there were unseen forces in the world, and he wanted to discover them all. Later in his life, he said, that experience left a deep and lasting impression on me. When Albert started school, things did not go well. He did not like the way his teachers taught. At that time, schools were very strict, and students were expected to memorize everything. But Albert was not interested in memorizing facts. He wanted to ask questions and find real answers. His teachers often became angry with him. One teacher even told him, "You are a disgrace. You will never be successful in life." These words hurt him deeply, but Albert did not let them stop him. Albert struggled with some subjects, especially languages. But there was one subject he loved more than anything: mathematics. He called it the language of the universe. He enjoyed solving math problems like puzzles. Numbers made sense to him in a way that words sometimes did not. Despite his struggles in school, Albert's family believed in him. His mother, Pauline, noticed his love for music and encouraged him to learn the violin. At first, Albert did not enjoy practicing. But over time, music became a way for him to relax and think clearly. It helped calm his mind when he felt confused or stressed. His uncle Jacob also played an important role in shaping his mind. Jacob loved mathematics and taught Albert in a fun and creative way. He once told him, "Math is like a treasure hunt. Every problem is a clue that leads you closer to the solution." This playful way of learning made Albert fall in love with numbers even more. Albert was not like other children. While others played games, he spent hours reading books and imagining how the world worked. He loved stories about great scientists and often dreamed of making discoveries of his own. One day, while walking home from school, Albert asked himself a strange question: what would it be like to ride on a beam of light? This question stayed with him for many years. It was the beginning of his lifelong journey to understand light, space, and time. When Albert was 15 years old, his life took a difficult turn. His father's business failed, and the family had to move to Italy. Albert stayed behind in Germany to finish school, but he hated being away from his family. He felt lonely and unhappy. Eventually, Albert decided to leave school without finishing. He could no longer stand the strict rules and harsh teachers. Instead, he began studying on his own. He read books on science, philosophy, and mathematics, teaching himself everything he wanted to know. This was a risky decision. Many people thought he was making a huge mistake. Many people believed Albert had ruined his future by leaving school, but Albert did not care. He believed that learning was more important than following rules. At the age of 16, Albert wrote his first scientific paper. It was not perfect, but it clearly showed his incredible potential and deep thinking. He later applied to a prestigious school in Switzerland called the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School. However, he failed the entrance exam because he struggled with non-science subjects such as French and history. Instead of giving up, Albert decided to try again. He worked harder than ever before, improved his weak areas, and refused to let failure define who he was. Albert Einstein's early life was full of struggles, doubts, and misunderstandings. Many people did not understand him. He faced rejection and failure again and again, but he never gave up. His curiosity, determination, and love for learning kept him moving forward. After leaving Germany, Albert moved to Switzerland, a country known for its modern and open education system. Switzerland was very different from Germany. Schools there were less strict, and students were encouraged to think freely and ask questions. This environment was exactly what Albert needed. At the age of 17, Albert applied again to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich. This time, he passed the entrance exam. However, his problems did not end there. Even though he was now studying at one of the best schools in Europe, Albert's rebellious nature made it difficult for him to fit in. He loved mathematics and physics, but he had little interest in other subjects. His professors did not understand his way of thinking, and some of them did not like him because he did not follow traditional teaching methods. One professor once said, "You are a smart boy, Einstein, but you lack discipline." Albert was not the best student in his class. He often skipped lectures and preferred to study on his own. While his classmates followed the curriculum, Albert spent his time thinking about deeper questions. He asked himself, what is light? How does time work? Why does gravity exist? These were not ordinary questions, and at that time, most people did not have answers to them. During his years at the Polytechnic, Albert met a young woman named Mileva Merrick. She was the only female physics student in his class. Like Albert, she was intelligent, curious, and passionate about science. Their shared love for physics and deep thinking brought them closer, and she would become an important part of Albert's life and journey. Mileva was brilliant, and she shared Albert's deep passion for science. The two of them became very close and often spent long hours together discussing scientific ideas and theories. Mileva was not just Albert's classmate, she became his closest companion and supporter. They inspired each other, challenged each other's thinking, and dreamed of a future where they could make important discoveries together. Albert once wrote to her, "Together, we will conquer the world of science." However, their relationship was not easy. Mileva faced criticism and judgment for being a woman in science at a time when women were not taken seriously in this field. Albert, on the other hand, struggled with serious financial problems. Life was hard for both of them, but despite these challenges, they supported each other and stayed focused on their dreams. Their shared love for knowledge kept them strong during difficult times. In 1900, at the age of 21, Albert graduated from the Polytechnic with a degree in physics. He was full of hope and excitement and believed he was finally ready to begin his career as a scientist. But life had other plans. Albert could not find a job. He applied to many universities, hoping to work as a professor or researcher, but he was rejected again and again. His professors did not write strong recommendations for him because they believed he was unmotivated and difficult. This was a painful and discouraging time for Albert. Imagine studying for years, working hard, and still facing rejection at every door. Even in these difficult moments, Albert did not give up. He took any work he could find to support himself. In 1902, Albert finally found a job as a clerk at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. His job was to examine patent applications and decide whether inventions were new and original. It was not a glamorous job, and it had little to do with physics. At first, Albert felt disappointed. He wanted to be a scientist, not an office worker. But instead of complaining, Albert chose to make the best of his situation. The job gave him something very valuable: time. During his quiet hours at the patent office, Albert thought deeply about his scientific ideas. He imagined new ways to understand space, time, light, and energy. Little did anyone know that in this small office, one of the greatest scientific revolutions in history was about to begin. Albert began to call the patent office his thinking laboratory. While reviewing patents during the day, he secretly wrote down his thoughts about light, time, and space. His mind was always working. Even after finishing his job, Albert stayed awake late into the night, studying and writing. He was determined to follow his dream, no matter how difficult life became. In 1903, Albert married Mileva. Their wedding was simple, but their hopes were big. Soon after, they welcomed their first child, a son named Hans Albert Einstein. Although they loved each other deeply, life was not easy. Albert's salary as a patent clerk was small, and supporting a family was hard. They lived in a small apartment and often worried about money. Many of Albert's friends told him to give up his scientific dreams and focus only on his job. But Albert refused. He believed that life without purpose was not real living. He once said that he would rather struggle for his passion than live comfortably without meaning. Despite all the hardships, Albert continued working on his ideas. In 1905, when he was only 26 years old, he published a series of scientific papers that changed the world forever. Scientists later called this year Einstein's Annus Mirabilis, or Miracle Year. In one paper, Albert explained the photoelectric effect, showing that light behaves like tiny particles called photons. This discovery later earned him the Nobel Prize in Physics. In another paper, he explained Brownian motion, proving that atoms truly exist. In his most famous work, The Special Theory of Relativity, Albert showed that time and space are not fixed but relative. From this theory came the famous equation E equals mc superscript 2, which showed that energy and matter are connected. These papers shocked the scientific world. Albert Einstein was not a famous professor or a university scholar. He was a simple patent clerk. Yet, he had completely changed the understanding of physics. After 1905, Albert's life slowly began to change. Scientists around the world noticed his work. He was offered teaching positions and became a professor at several universities. At last, his years of hard work and patience were rewarded. Even with success and recognition, Albert remained humble. He did not stop asking questions or searching for deeper truths. His curiosity never faded, and his desire to understand the universe continued to guide him. Albert Einstein proved that greatness does not come from comfort, but from passion, persistence, and belief in one's own ideas. Albert believed that knowledge has no limits and that curiosity is the key to understanding the universe. His journey from a struggling patent clerk to a world-famous scientist is a powerful example of perseverance. Throughout his life, Albert faced rejection, poverty, and self-doubt, but he never let go of his love for science. His story teaches us important lessons. First, failure is not the end, it is only a step toward success. Second, believing in yourself matters more than seeking approval from others. Third, big dreams require big sacrifices. By 1909, Albert Einstein's groundbreaking discoveries were known across Europe. He became a professor at the University of Zurich and later moved to Prague to teach at the German university. During these years, Albert slowly began to realize the importance of his work. People now saw him as a genius, a thinker capable of uncovering the deepest mysteries of the universe. Yet Albert remained humble. He once said that he was not a genius, but simply a curious person who stayed with questions longer than others. Fame brought new challenges. Albert did not care about wealth, status, or appearance. He continued living a simple life, often wearing the same old clothes and focusing only on his research. While the world celebrated him, Albert knew that his journey was far from finished and that there was still much to discover. In 1914, Albert moved to Berlin, Germany, after receiving a prestigious offer from the Prussian Academy of Sciences. This marked an important turning point in his career. For the first time, he had complete freedom and strong support to focus entirely on scientific research. Around the same time, the world was entering a dark period. World War I broke out, and millions of lives were affected. While many scientists supported the war, Albert openly spoke against it. He believed deeply in peace and used his voice to promote harmony and understanding. During these difficult years, Albert's marriage to Mileva began to fall apart. The pressure of fame, combined with past financial struggles, created distance between them. In 1919, they divorced. Even so, Albert made sure that Mileva and their sons were financially supported. That same year, something extraordinary happened. British scientists tested Albert's general theory of relativity, a theory he had been developing since 1915. The results confirmed his prediction that gravity could bend light. This discovery shocked the world and forever changed humanity's understanding of the universe. The news spread like wildfire. Almost overnight, Albert Einstein became a global icon. Newspapers around the world printed bold headlines announcing that Einstein's theory had been proven true. For the first time in history, a scientist was treated like a celebrity. When people asked Albert how he felt about his sudden fame, he responded with humor and honesty. He said that if his theories were proven wrong, Americans would call him German and Germans would call him a Jew. But if his theories were proven right, Germans would call him German and Americans would call him a Jew. This statement reflected both Albert's sharp wit and the deep prejudice he faced as a Jewish scientist in a divided world. During the 1920s, Albert traveled across the globe, giving lectures and meeting scientists from many countries. He visited the United States, Japan, and other parts of the world, sharing his ideas and inspiring a new generation of thinkers. Wherever he went, people listened with admiration. Albert did not use his fame for personal gain. Instead, he used his voice to promote peace. He openly spoke against war, saying that peace cannot be kept by force and can only be achieved through understanding. He also stood up for the rights of minorities and refugees, becoming a voice for those who were often ignored or silenced. As his fame grew, so did criticism. Some people accused Albert of being too idealistic, while others tried to discredit his work. Albert faced these attacks with calm and grace. He believed that great ideas often disturb those who fear change. He once said that great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. These words reflected his strength and confidence in his beliefs. In 1933, the rise of the Nazi regime in Germany placed Albert in great danger. As a Jewish scientist, he was no longer safe. The Nazis burned his books and labeled his discoveries as Jewish science. Forced to leave his homeland, Albert fled to the United States and settled in Princeton, New Jersey, where he joined the Institute for Advanced Study. Although his heart was heavy with sadness over what was happening in Germany, he remained hopeful. He believed that even in the darkest moments, there is a chance for growth. He often said that in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Albert became an American citizen in 1940 and spent the rest of his life in the United States. During World War II, he was asked to support the development of the atomic bomb. Although he did not take part directly in its creation, his famous equation, E=mc², laid the scientific foundation for nuclear energy. This realization deeply troubled him and would later shape his strong stance on peace and responsibility in science. Albert was deeply shaken when he learned about the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. He felt great regret knowing that his scientific work had been used for destruction instead of peace. From that moment on, he spent the rest of his life speaking out against nuclear weapons and advocating for global disarmament. He believed humanity had crossed a dangerous line. Albert once said that mankind invented the atomic bomb, but no mouse would ever build a mousetrap. With these words, he warned the world about intelligence without wisdom. Despite being one of the most famous people on Earth, Albert lived a simple and humble life. He refused to own a car, rarely wore socks, and cared little about material possessions. He enjoyed quiet moments, often sailing on lakes even though he did not know how to swim. Fame never changed him. What mattered most to Albert was thinking, learning, and understanding the universe. Albert's curiosity never faded, even in his later years. He continued to ask deep questions about reality, including the nature of black holes, time, and space. He believed that no matter how much humans discover, there is always more to learn. In his final years, Albert focused on one of the greatest challenges in science, uniting all the forces of nature into a single theory. Although this goal remained unfinished, his efforts inspired generations of scientists to continue the search. As his health slowly declined, Albert never stopped working. He continued writing, thinking, and questioning until his final days. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away at the age of 76. His last words were spoken in German and were never recorded because the nurse by his side did not understand the language. Even in silence, his legacy spoke louder than words. Albert Einstein's contributions to science, peace, and humanity remain unmatched. His life teaches us powerful lessons. Struggles shape greatness, because Albert faced rejection, ridicule, and war but never gave up on his dreams. Curiosity drives progress, because he showed us the importance of questioning everything and searching for truth. Humility is strength, because despite his fame, Albert remained grounded and simple. Today, the name Albert Einstein is synonymous with genius, but his story is about much more than intelligence. It is a story of perseverance, courage, and belief in the power of one individual to change the world. His life proves that greatness is not about being perfect, but about being passionate, persistent, and brave enough to challenge the impossible. His words continue to echo through time: try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value.